Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Kevin Goodman, and I am previously with VMware, and I've been waiting 2 years to give this speech. So let's get started. I will tell you, I woke up this morning, and when I did work for VMware, the UK was one of my territories. And when I got up this morning, you know how you in a different hotel room, if you've traveled, you may understand this feeling. I got up and for a second I forgot where I was. And I knew I was in London, but I thought I was giving a VDI sales pitch. And then when I finally woke up, I realized I didn't have to do that. I felt wonderful. So let's get started. Like I said, I was there at VMware for 2 years. And prior to that, I was the CEO of RTO Software. I don't know if you can zoom in on this or not right here, but I've been in this industry a little while. For those of you who can't see this in the back, this is my Citrix iForum 1999 shirt that I dug out and wore today for Retro IT Shirt Day. So VMware acquired RTO Software in February of 2010. And everybody who was working there now, between me and Paul Moritz, was different. I reported to someone named Jocelyn, and she's a fantastic person, and she went on to great success. She now works at Facebook. And I haven't talked to her yet, but I wonder how the IPO went for her. But she said, Kevin, what we're going to do for you is something we've never done for any of our CEOs before. Normally, they just run the division that we bought, and that doesn't seem to work out too well. For you, we're going to put you in something completely different, something out of your element so you could learn. So they made me product manager of the security server. Let me ask a couple of questions. Anyone using VMware? I'll tell you what a security server is, and it is their SSL VPN product. In mid-2010, as a product manager, I found out it wasn't going to ship 4.5 like it was supposed to. So I spent a lot of time out in the field talking to folks such as yourself. I met a lot of unhappy customers who had been told that it was going to ship. So I've spent a lot of time talking with people, telling me what they really think about VMware's products. So 4.5 comes along, and RTO Software was acquired for its Virtual Profiles product. And then it didn't ship in 4.5. So I went back. Meanwhile, Jocelyn wasn't there anymore. It was someone else was there. It was Amit Patel. And Amit Patel's the best boss I ever worked for. Smart, super intelligent guy. He's since left and went on. He's now at Autodesk running all of AutoCAD. So I said to him, wow, we got so much bad publicity for View Persona not shipping that it all came back to me because I was the CEO. If you're going to mess up my product, you might as well give it back to me. So I became the PM of View Persona. So I spent lots and lots more time in the field. And many, many, many more unhappy customers. So what you're going to hear today is all of what they've told me. I like to make my speeches interactive. I'd like to hear back from you. I was here last year. I know it's early and you don't like to talk if you don't have to, but I might drag a few tidbits out of each of you. I was told, oh, they're Brits, they won't talk. And that's not true, is it? Come on. All right. So, this was in the middle of my career when I was at Citrix. I started in mainframes, and I left in the 90s because I thought mainframes were dead, okay? Anybody know any systems out there still using mainframes? Yeah, they're not dead, are they? No, not dead yet. So take everything I say today with a grain of salt. If I think VDI's time has passed, if I think it is something that you should only invest in for a small amount of time, keep in mind I quit a very, very good company that went public after I left because I thought mainframes were dead. So shows you I don't know everything. These are just my experiences and some of my opinions about what's going on. Let's find out a little bit about you. I'll just ask you a question. So when I was here selling, mostly it was to resellers. Are there anyone who's a reseller? Yes. And for those that of you who are reselling, you're almost like a consultative for your group. They come, they listen to you, and then they buy the software you recommend. That's how I remember it being as well. IT? The rest? IT, are there any end users? Yes, okay, good. Physical desktops part of the mix? Okay, getting a good show of hands here, yes, okay. All right, so somewhere around here, let's see where we are with our VDI. Who has VDI installed in production and running? Look at that, that's fantastic, I love it. Somebody shout out, VMware, anyone using ESX on the vSphere on the back end? Same amount of hands, okay. Citrix, Zen Desktop? About half, all right, and the rest of you, VMware View or something else? Quest, I heard Quest. What else? Anything I didn't mention? View, and how about any straight RDP back to Microsoft? Sure, a couple, yes. Excellent, okay. Of those there, how about anyone that start a pilot but hasn't got out of a pilot yet? We got a couple more after that, okay. Just looking, who hasn't started yet? So a couple of you here, perhaps for the conference today, to get some information about what to do. Well, in this room, you're going to see some people have done it, and they're up in production. We got some others in pilots. We have others just looking. Okay, excellent. Oh, I asked that question, right, vSphere. It seemed to me the majority, a couple are Hyper-V. I know we at least one Hyper-V in the room, a couple of Hyper-Vs as well. Okay. Zen server? All right, so I got one of these. All right, I don't know exactly what that means. Zen server, yes. Zen server, no. We're still deciding. Is that, yeah, okay.
Tactically for GPU pass-through.
Okay.
You have no choice.
Okay, so if you need a GPU pass-through, you're using for that.
Still running comparisons.
Got you. Or in comparisons. All right, great. Anybody using this? So about 3/4. How about your users? Anybody? Yeah? Got a few. All right. So I'd say about 80% between using it or their users are using it. Did you go to a conference to figure out how to use this? 2-day session, how to use the iPad? I'm getting a couple of shaking heads. No. No? Why would you have to do that for VDI? Why would you not do that for the iPad? All right, it's really early and I'm pretty slow, so maybe we'll figure that out during the session. So if the iPad is so easy, why all the hype about VDI? Why is there a 2-day conference for this? Why not just go get some VDI, install it, and be done with it? Move on to the next thing. I have a little saying that we always used to use when we couldn't figure anything out at the business, okay? When you don't know the answer, you can't figure out what the answer is money, all right? VDI is big money, very big money. So that's why all the hype is there. That's why all the pressure to buy is there. That's why there's so many vendors here downstairs presenting. It's a big ecosystem. Let's see if we can't go over that, right? If you look at VDI for their whole product solution, that color isn't coming out right the way it looks on my screen, but so I'll read these to you, okay? I may be missing a few. If I am, feel free to raise your hand. platforms, clients, storage optimization, image management, user experience virtualization, thin clients, maybe repurposed PCs, identity management. I may have forgotten a few, for example, monitoring and other things like that. But I figure if you have physical PCs, you also have to monitor them. So you may need a separate monitor to monitor your virtual desktops, but I left it off for that reason. So let's look at the vendors in that space, huh? Well, let's not do it with that button. Let's do it with this button. On the platform, I also put Oracle on there. I forgot to ask, any Oracle backend? I think they're a sponsor. Are they a sponsor here? Yeah. I don't know about you, but the best part about BriForum is that I find when you go down into that vendor room, they send their SEs and their product managers rather than their salesmen and their sales staff. And no knock on salesmen. I became one in the last couple of years. But you can go to an SC and say, okay, why are you any better than this product right here? Technically, I want to know. I don't want to see marketing slick. I don't want to see your other stuff. But you came to BriForum. What do you got? Tell me, And then you're armed with information that's there. That's the one thing I like about BriForum. I worked this show at VMworld, and the one in Vegas, 14,000 people come to it. It's a fantastic show. But 14,000 people come, they have enough time to hand you out a piece of literature and let you look at their pre-packaged demo. There's no way you can get one on one time. I really like, for me personally, I learned a few things about some storage optimization vendors that I didn't know before. That doesn't mean I might buy them, I might not buy them, or anything like that, but I learned a few things about them that I just didn't know they existed. Then the clients, Ericom. Is anyone using the Ericom HTML5 client? Okay. And then I heard some Quest, Citrix, some VMware. Backend storage, EMC, IBM, Fiber Channel. What do we got? NetApp. There we go. Okay. Atlantis, Nutanix. There's Versto is downstairs. That's one of the new ones I learned about. There's XIO is down there as well. Who's using some storage optimization to help with their IOPS? A few of you. Who have had problems with IOPS? Okay, so I retired from VMware in February, and I'm looking for a new startup, okay? This is the second time I've retired, and I'm too young to retire, all right? Someone figure out how to measure IOPS ahead of time? Was that anybody's problem while they were doing VDI? Hey, how many IOPS are we going to need? Oh, I don't know. We could start up a pilot and see how many you use. Over provision, then take a measurement and then scale back. Is that how you figured out your IOPS? You just bought what you thought was enough and added more if that wasn't enough? Man, I want a tool that just tells me. I'll do that in Atlantis or Nutanix or EMC or somebody would buy that one, wouldn't they? You would buy that one, wouldn't you?
Very hard problem.
It's an extremely hard problem. So who has storage optimization? Those of you who raised your hands for physical desktops, who has storage optimization for your physical desktops? Those hard drives you have inside the PC. I'm being facetious, right? Do you really need to measure the IOPS? Actually, I had someone raise their hand. Tell me what you're doing on your physical desktop, sir.
Office 2010, we noticed that older machines were struggling, so we ran the idle task DLLs to optimize the disk each month and delve across the defrags to get some performance out of it.
Okay, so I came up with a use case where I heard it right here. There's a use case. Let me repeat that for you if you didn't hear that. On his physical PCs, with the use of Office, the heavy use of Office, they noticed it was getting fragmented more frequently than they expected it to, so they're running processes to do a defrag there. On your virtual desktops, it's almost a necessity. You Probably everyone in the room who's using Office could benefit from the solution you just suggested, but everyone in the room I know could benefit from storage optimization in reducing IOPS. It's the most expensive thing in VDI. You take that nice, cheap hard disk that was sitting underneath your desk, and you pick it up and you put it in the most expensive place in your organization, behind that glass wall. All right, because then that nice, cheap hard disk has turned into a sand that is no longer nice and cheap. Well, it's nice, but it's not cheap anymore, correct? Image management. I have Winova up here. You heard about the Winova acquisition by VMware? Did anyone hear that? I actually was in the very first kickoff meeting for the M&A with Raghu, another great guy that I worked for at VMware, when Winova came in and gave us their pitch. And I left and said, man, this stuff is awesome. Awesome. So it's big company, lots of investment. You can see how long that was 2 years ago. That's how long it takes to do some of these M&As. Or Unidesk or Sense. With Winova out of the mix, if you're looking for something that's vendor agnostic, Unidesk has got to be the big choice. Sense is up and coming there. Who's using image management? Just a few of you. How are you? I'm curious, to those who didn't raise your hand, someone tell me how you're managing the images. One gold image that you just push out, pretty much? Okay, other non-virtualization specific tools that you would also use for your physical desktops as well. Okay. This is my little product used to be in this bowling pin right here. RTO Software's virtual profiles. Who's doing user experience virtualization? I didn't put Microsoft's name up there, but I used their term, didn't I? I think Absence calls it user virtualization. It was only when Microsoft came up with their UEV that we started calling it user experience virtualization. I actually like that term better because I never thought we were actually virtualizing the users. If we were virtualizing the users, we get so much more work out of them. But if you want to do non-persistent desktops, or I guess in Citrix land they call it shared, is that? I apologize not knowing the Citrix terms as well. I used to know them really well 2 years ago, but at VMware, you're up to your lower lip with your own products. You're going to get a good chance to learn a lot about the other ones. But in View, we have persistent and non-persistent disks. On non-persistent, you have to have some type of user experience virtualization, correct? Trick question. Actually, I don't think that's necessary as we get into this. I think some of the best places for non-persistent desktops will be in places where you don't save the user's desktop when they're done. Universities, students come in, locations like kiosks and stuff like that. Those are places I've seen virtualization work best, desktop virtualization. I've gotten up this morning and I was talking to a university here, I would have relished the chance to come tell you what a great job we're going to do for your students. But as you can see here, I am not even all the way through my whole product solution and I've got 15 vendors already. This is a complicated mix to get correctly. Two things I've learned about that. One, if you don't know what you're doing, you can make a mistake. But two, if you do know what you're doing, and I have seen customers who don't, and I've seen customers who do know what they're doing, and the ones that do know what they're doing make a lot of money, get a lot of promotions, and end up rising up through their organizations. So, if you're going to do VDI, and you learn how to do all this stuff correctly, and you get your users their desktop and their applications the way they want it, you will be rewarded, either in your company or the next company that needs somebody just like this. Thin clients or physical desktops? Thin clients. I picked Dell, you know, they bought Wise, and I picked HP. There's several others. Someone yell out if they're doing something different. Tenzing. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, I was running out of space for icons here, but I think they have a small percentage of the market, and the rest of you didn't raise your hands. Are you just using the regular physical desktop to access it? Now, did you repurpose it so it looks like a thin client, or are they doing other physical desktop activities on there and they just have either a Zen desktop client or a View client?
As applications are becoming ever work in that space, we're moving away from them. So we've still got physical desktops for the apps that we currently can't push over or are able to push over, just to give you both.
Okay, so the one response I got was they're using sort of like a migration as well. They can't get everything over to virtual desktops yet, so they have physical desktop running some apps local. We see a lot of that.
Yeah, we repurposed during the proof of concept, had a physical desktop that had the profile virtual isolate could actually access and use both desktops and have the same experience, but as they moved to production, repurposed or replaced the Explorer shell with the View shell so that when they log on, they just use single sign-on.
Yeah, so during the migration process, they were using both local apps and virtual desktops. Once it completed, they actually just went out and replaced the Explorer shell with the VDI client, and voila. Okay. Anybody using two-phase authentication? Smart cards in there as well. Yeah. Now, that's something you may use on your physical desktops, you know, thumbprint or fingerprint or something like that. But in general, these are all the things we want you to know about before you get started on a VDI project. So it's not something you just jump into. Tell me about the iPad, though. Do I need to learn any of this? I'd probably just run down to the Apple store and pick one up, right? So there's a spectrum here for getting your applications. And
You just solved it, getting your applications. Go down to the iPad store and get your applications.
yeah.
Try it.
Yeah, so the comment was, yeah, you go to the App Store and you get your applications.
But you don't. That's the point.
Okay, continue, tell me.
Well, I'm just saying the line of business applications are not in the App Store.
Right, okay, yeah, so
It is not fair.
my analogy is not fair because we haven't converted all our line of business applications over to something that works on your personal device. Fair enough, okay? That's why we're still doing virtual desktops, because we got legacy Windows apps that we can't seem to get rid of.
That's why we're still doing mainframes.
Wow, I was just going to say that. Okay. So I was just going to say, and I'm the guy that left mainframes because I thought they were dead back in the 90s. Gartner thinks that like this year, the mix between Windows apps and non-Windows apps will be 50-50, which means of all the Windows apps that are produced this year, there'll be 50% SaaS apps, mobile apps, Linux apps, other apps that will be done and produced, and that'll change over time to where in 2020 they think we won't have any more Windows apps. I don't know about that, but as time goes on, I can see us trying to get off of them, but we just went to one customer not 18 months ago, was on Windows 95 still. So, okay. This is what they tell me. Is this true? Customers want a single vendor. So, one of the complications in jumping and going down the VDI path is for someone from VMware to come sell you VDI, I got to drag along 15 other vendors with me. That's why a lot of us know, we don't know too much about the competition of Citrix, what they're doing. We have a whole division that'll tell us that. But all us guys out in the field, we know what all these other guys are doing because we have to, because you need them as well. That's why we know about all these vendors. Thought about that. So I'm telling you about the competitors. Who is VMware's biggest competitor? Is it Microsoft? Or is it Citrix? Maybe Oracle, they're coming up. Anyone has a guess? If you said none of the above, you are correct. Business as usual. That's the biggest competitor for VMware. Business as usual. If you buy that Zen desktop from Citrix, VMware's got a chance, the next version they come out with, to get it back from you. Because once you've gone a virtual desktop, changing that software out isn't as difficult as once you buy a physical desktop, you're stuck with that for your amortization schedule. So if we lose, and I will continue to say we, sorry VMware, I will continue to say we probably for another 2 years because I was there and drenched in it. But if VMware loses to a physical desktop, they've lost it 3-4 years minimum. I have a little note here to tell an amusing anecdote about the time when I was at a conference with Dell. It was a conference in Atlanta, tactical US military. Drive up to where the conference is, and instead of being inside the hotel, it was out in the parking lot. And there were these big, huge satellite dishes that were painted desert sand camouflage and tanks and all this kind of new stuff. And then you go inside and had the more of the technical stuff. And Dell had a booth, HP had a booth, VMware had a booth. And the Dell rep had come over and talked to me and said, hey, we need to talk to the so-and-so customer because they do a lot of things together between the two of them. And I said, okay, I think they're going to be here in the afternoon. So I saw the customer. They were in there, and I saw them. They headed for the Dell booth, and I walked around the corner, and she was going, ooh, the cloud. Oh, the cloud. Do you really, really want to stake your life on a connection between your laptop and somewhere up off a satellite? I don't think so. What you need is the Dell. And she proceeded to tell about her Dell physical laptop. Then I waited till she was done. I came around the corner and said, oh, hey, yeah, let's talk about this VMware Dell solution we're putting together here. Yeah, I think that the biggest competitor right now is Dell and HP. And I think Citrix may think it's VMware, but I think it's Dell and HP for Citrix as well. Just a little tidbit. So if it's Dell and HP, look at, I don't need that anymore, do I? I could get rid of that. Maybe don't need that anymore, right? Probably I could use my traditional image management tools there. I don't need Unidesk, as far as I know, is only virtual. I'll just go out and do that. So when you're embarking on a VDI project, you're in the middle of a VDI project, it isn't Citrix and VMware you need to know most about. It's all those other. You have to become an expert on those. That's why I would walk down there and ask each and every one of those guys what they do, just to get up to speed, just so you know, because some of those may come in very, very handy to you, because it's a huge, huge whole product solution to do VDI. Let's take a step back. Why were we lulled into doing this virtual desktop stuff? Yes, we have these legacy apps. Yes, we have to move forward. But I think from what I've seen in talking to customers in the last 2 years is their success with their server virtualization kind of lulled them into a false sense of security. Server virtualization is a slam dunk, isn't it? Who's virtualizing their servers? All right, the guy that didn't put his hand up is working on his BlackBerry, but everybody else that is doing server virtualization. I know this because VMware has just about every corporation in America doing server virtualization, which is why they need you to buy desktop virtualization, because everybody who needs server virtualization has it. Where do you get your growth from? You got to get it from another area, and desktop virtualization is one of those areas. But I mean, it was so simple, right? Hey, Did they come in and say you have to virtualize your entire data center in one fell swoop? No, I don't think so, right? They said file servers. Now, if you were a VMware customer way back when it was GSX, let's just do file servers, okay? You can leave all the other physical servers, your database, your web servers, your Exchange, your Oracle, all those guys, leave them alone, just do file servers. And by doing that, you can have a nice little company of your VMware, right? And then they come out with another release, and wow, we're good enough to do your web servers. You throw in some vMotion there and a few other high availability things, and wow, you got a pretty smooth data center running. And let's take away those database servers, let's consolidate them. Now we start talking green. Wow, we're saving you power, we're saving you cooling, we're saving you money. That's the kind of green that I liked when you talk server virtualization at VMware. That's the kind of green. American dollars are green. You can even virtualize Citrix servers, okay? So back then, remember that before desktop virtualization, VMware and Citrix were buddies. Remember that? We're partners. Yeah, come on, put Citrix on VMware and get that session density up. Then, you know, more complicated things like Exchange. And before you know it, you've gotten your whole data center virtualized, right? What do we call it at VMware? The journey? Have you heard him say that? Where are you on your journey? It's a little bit of a social thing, right? Where are you on your journey? Well, I'm just starting on my journey, meaning, okay, good, you're going to be buying more as time goes. I'm well on my journey. Okay, well, let's get you to do desktop virtualization now. I'm seeing a smile in the back. Have you heard this before, the journey? Where are you on the journey? I didn't ask you where you were on the journey for your desktop virtualization, because when I was out in the field, they would tell me it's not a journey, it's a death march, so stop it. And we call that the vSphere halo effect. The vSphere halo effect. We did such a great job with your servers, why don't you let us do your desktops? Why not? Same thing, right? I'm pausing to see all the heads shaking up and down. Not. No, it isn't exactly the same thing, and here's why, right? How do I do that? Where you came to me and said, just do your file servers. How do you come and can you say, just do your department? Just do that one department there. And like this gentleman will tell you, what if you have legacy apps in that department that won't virtualize? Now what do we do? Well, let's not do it by department. How about by location? Well, we'll just do the Mercy office, or we'll just do the Manchester office, or something along those lines. What if they have applications that are in that mix that won't virtualize? Now what do we do? Let's do it by application then. And that's sort of what we're doing today, right? You have a physical desktop for those applications that won't virtualize, and on that physical desktop, you have a view client for those that will virtualize. Is that sort of the way you see it? Here's my problem, okay? Use case is similar to application, but I don't get that same benefit if I just do one use case or one application like I got with server virtualization. Because if I do something like that, where am I on my slide here? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I left that off earlier, didn't I? I now have another leg in my whole product solution. Onboarding. VMware comes and tells you you can do your file servers, you can do your file servers. They come and tell you that you can do your web servers, you can do the web servers. They pretty much making $4 billion a year now because they do what they say they can do. Database servers, not yet. New release comes out, database servers. Exchange, don't do Exchange yet. New release comes out, do Exchange. All of you who are virtualizing them will tell me and every other customer has told me this stuff is working out great. If I tell you to do your applications, all your applications are homegrown. I don't know which ones will and which ones won't. So we have companies sprout up to take advantage of the gap in the marketplace that do onboarding software. Anybody using onboarding software? I put Liquidware Labs up there because I'm most familiar with. There's other ones too out there, isn't there? There's using Liquidware. Okay. I have an affinity towards this company, by the way. So RTO Software, the day the checks were written to all the employees, the entire sales staff quit and went to work for Liquidware Labs. So I just happen to know all these people. I know about their products. So, but they have onboarding software. Those of you who are not using that, how do you know whether your application will virtualize or not? Just your in-depth knowledge of the application? Do you? Oh, using Lakeside. So you're using another onboarded. Lakeside was the other one I couldn't. Michael Schumacher's company. That was another one I couldn't remember or find. The internet was flaky. I had trouble finding an icon, I think, the day I was doing this slide. So you end up with a hybrid, yeah? Some physical, some virtual. When you had a hybrid data center with some physical, some virtual, I don't know if it was you, it might have been your colleague, it was probably the same guy that was managing the data center. It might be here, but you're wearing two hats now, if it is. How many have the same system administrator for the physical desktops as they do for the virtual desktops? So did you have to go and retrain and get a V-letter acronym after your name? So you have to go and learn all this stuff. So you just got two jobs. So either you became two people or they started paying you twice as much. Two, yeah? All you guys who raise your hands for doing two jobs now, both physical and virtual, big rise in pay for that? Early in the morning, I know, and I am a cheeky, what's the word? I'm supposed to, cheeky bastard about this. Most of you did not. You just got added responsibilities. But you'll see later on, this is one of the reasons I think VDI has gotten as far as it can. It's social. You got something on your resume now that you didn't have before, right? People ask me, VDI success, would you say it's been a raging success? Sure is a small percentage in the marketplace. Nowhere near where Gartner thought it would be. Anyone remember the Gartner by 2010, 80% of all desktops would be virtualized? I say that quote with 0.7 probability because I don't remember exactly what it was. It might have been something like that. But everybody was going to have virtual desktop by 2010. We haven't gotten there yet. And this is why I think 80% solutions just don't work. Now, if it was like the data center, I knew 80% of your servers, that's one thing. But if I can do 80% of one physical PC, you can't ask the user to stop being 20% productive, stop using those apps, stop doing what you were doing before, stop having graphics, stop using USB, don't write DVD writers anymore. That is a tough migration. So we'll go through this, and I'll tell you which ones I've seen work great, and we'll figure out what to do with the rest of them. You're going to have to end up with a hybrid solution. You're going to accept the fact that it's not for everybody, it's not for every use case, and it's not for every application. And for technical reasons that we can go into, it might never be. The main one being if you have all your data in a data center and everybody wants to send it out at the same time, you can't fit 10 pounds of data into a 5-pound sack. It just doesn't. 10 stone of data into a 5-stone stack. Sorry.
I think one of the problems that we have is we're on a third generation of VDI. We've done Microsoft, we're on 661. The problems that we have is like user experience. They want the same user experience extended working in a different office. They want to have the same applications, the same login times, exact same experience. And it's very difficult to try and do that. And get that's it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. They get lulled. They were lulled by the success. IT was lulled by the success of server virtualization. But the users, especially the ones who used Fusion or Workstation or Microsoft Virtual PC, you put Microsoft Virtual PC up and you see it, and I think VMware has a free download that's similar to it. Wow, you see another desktop sitting in this window on top of your Windows. Or if you're a Mac user like me, you see a Windows desktop on your Mac. And the graphics are perfect, and it works with your peripherals, and it just works fantastic. I want that. Give me that right there. Just do the VDI thing and put it in the data center and give me that. I want that same exact experience. But you don't get that same exact experience. Oh, and here's a dig on Citrix. This one really bugged me when they were saying, and it's the ICA protocol. Well, when it first started out, it actually wasn't the ICA protocol, was it? You know, it didn't have. Now, Vue is on version 5. Taking five versions to get the protocol right. I would say to you now that the PC over IP protocol, and I'm not the only one, Brian Madden has said it, and everyone from VMware has said it, and someone from Citrix acknowledged it. Protocols aren't an issue anymore, right? You can get that same type of experience remotely for many applications that you were able to get locally with the HDX protocol and the PC over IP protocol. Wow, it only took 5 versions, okay? And let's not talk about 3D graphics while we're there, okay? Because 3D graphics, we don't really have that answer for you yet. You can do it with Vue. I've seen it for non-hardware accelerated 3D graphics. Little caveat there, right? So if you're doing Google Earth, or maybe you're doing Office 3D or Aero, I can set you up with that no problem, with only a little tiny asterisk after it that says, oh, your session density may degrade just a tad, right? So why are vendors pushing it so hard then? Why are they cramming VDI down your throat if it's at, huh? Aha, Goodman's Law again. If you don't know the answer is money. And there's big money, right? And now we're going to go back into my where Vue did 175. I got this from the 10K. I worked there. Yes, actually at some point I was considered an insider. But I got this from their public documents. So they did $175 million. Actually, let me clarify that. EUC, there's a big umbrella of products. End user computing did $175 million. That's US last year. Let's subtract out Zimbra, SocialCast, SlideRocket, ThinApp. Say you want to give Vue $150 million a year? Okay, let's do that. Last year, Max did $21 billion. So it's money, but it's not as big as, now that's hardware instead of software, I understand, but there's 16 million MacBooks out there that got sold last year. I also got this from the Apple 10K, by the way. You think there's 16 million seats of VDI out there? I don't. So based on what I saw here, and I have no other way to do it, I'd listen to what VMware says, and VMware says Vue sells more seats than Zen Desktop. I listen to what Citrix says, and they say they sell more Zen Desktop than Vue. I look at some independent third parties who give it 50-50. Argument's sake, let's say Citrix is a little bit better. That's $200 million. You're not getting $375 million worth of seats. Remember that whole product solution that was sitting around there? You had $1 billion industry. Yeah, I'd be pushing you to buy more VDI as well. tell you this just so you know this while you're doing it, because I have seen, and I've got a slide here on it. It's not just those vendors I showed you. It's consultants too, right? This is a tweet from Chris Wolf. He's with Gartner. Remember the guy? So the guy who originally said the world would take over by 2010 in Gartner, Brian Gamage, you know what happened to him? Anybody? He went to work for VMware. So anyway, Chris Wolf is the VDI expert now, I guess. And I don't know if you can read that, so I'll read it to you. But it says that experts that are saying VDI isn't taking off need to spend less time talking and more time getting heads out of the sand. Tons of deployments going on. So another gentleman aspect, but is anybody deploying it? What's the list price on Vue? It's 150 US. What's the discounted price? You want to go with 100, just for argument's sake? Is that 1.5 million seats of Vue last year? Who thinks there was 1.5 million seats of Vue people using Vue out there? Not this guy, right? Right? Has anyone deployed it? He says hundreds of people have deployed it. And dozens at scale of greater than 5K. So apparently tons equals hundreds, because earlier he said tons of people are doing this, okay? 10 dozen, 120 people. I don't think my math is right there, but I just don't think that there's that many Vue deployments out there. We used to go in and we'd talk to customers. We'd tell them, you need to be doing VDI now. You have to do VDI now. And say, our budget is like, we don't have any. Oh, did we not tell you in the enterprise license agreement that you signed that it came with 1,000 seats of Vue? So no reason to buy Zen Desktop. Let's just go over and start on Vue. We already took care of your licenses. You already paid it. We did it as an addendum to your vSphere contract. So I guess that 1,000 counts in the 175 million. Do you know that VMware, and this is, I heard a VMware salesman say this out in public, so I can repeat it. Do you know if you buy Zen Desktop, the VMware salesman gets a commission on that? Because any vSphere sold for VDI is in his commission range. So you count that in that 175 billion as well. So we may have some double counting going on there. Oh, I see. So please don't disparage VDI, Kevin, because I'm doing 30 calls a week on this stuff. So I'm not the only one making money on here. Consultants are making a lot of money selling you VDI. It's not just VMware and Citrix that are doing it, right? This is, I think at one time this guy was my boss. Vittorio, do you guys go to VMworld? Watch any of the VMworld slides? This is the actor who sings in the band and then sits up on stage and pretends he's a worker whose life was made much better by VDI. Wonderful guy, very extremely wonderful guy. Pleasure to be around. Not too happy about Brian's book, though. Who's seen or heard of Brian's book, The VDI Delusion? I said seen or heard about. Anybody read it? So this is from one of my favorite movies from my childhood, Risky Business. Joey Pantaleone's Joey Pants. In this, he was Guido, the killer pimp, in which he said, hey, kid, in times of economic uncertainty, never F with another man's livelihood. So that's where that came from. You'll see, and I'm expecting blogs about it, and look at these blogs when my VMware colleagues find out that, I just want to say I compliment every one of you there. They're extremely smart people. Wonderful company. I'm disparaging VDI, not any of you. Watch what happens when they get the tweets back about me. If they're personal attacks on me about what an idiot I am, well, they're probably true, but also that will diminish what I'm saying about VDI. Everything I've said here, you'll see, and as I go through it, is, and they're not going to be able to say anything different about it. So that's the book. And everybody's selling something, including me, right? I wrote the foreword to that book. So, just to put it in perspective, okay? So, after all that, how do we make VDI success? I present to you Goodman's hierarchy of virtualization. I'll read it to you in case you can't see these letters. But with apologies to Maslow, please have everything on the lower level done before you move on to the upper level. So it starts storage virtualization, network virtualization, server virtualization, application virtualization, and then desktop virtualization. There are exceptions to every rule. You may be able to skip a few places here and there, especially with application virtualization. But I used to walk into customers, and the first question I ask is, where are you on your journey with virtualization? I say, oh, we're using it. We're using it a lot. Take a look. We have Workstation installed. And I go, oh, and now you're attempting to do VDI. This is not, route them into the ocean, avoid innocent lives. This isn't going to work. If you're not doing server virtualization and succeeding at it, and you have those nice three-lettered V acronyms after your name, and you have success doing this, you're going to have a more difficult time than the people who are experienced at server virtualization in trying to implement desktop virtualization. If you've not tried to virtualize an app, if you don't have any app V in-house, or any thin app, or any of the other guys that are out there trying to virtualize your applications for you, you're going to have a more difficult time getting your applications up. You're going to have a longer hybrid period in which you have physical desktops and stuff you haven't figured out how to move yet. The more, question, go ahead.
Would you put user experience virtualization before desktop and between the app? Because I guess a lot of people we're speaking to, all that gets bundled into the VDI project, but those tools are equally useful for physical desktops to separate those layers.
So you're asking, should user experience virtualization be part of the pyramid in such a way that you should have experience with that prior to?
Yeah, and I think it's if you look at, same with app virtualization, it suits physical desktops as well as VDI, it's not a VDI exclusive component.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. In creating this pyramid, I actually created this pyramid for Virtual Strategy magazine when I was still at RTO Software. And at the time, RTO Software, our virtual profiles only sold to physical desktop users. So fast forward a little bit, and yes, that could fit in there as well. I would agree with that. I think when I originally created the slide, I was thinking that that would be on physical desktops already, so you'd already have it. But if you don't have that, you're going to have to put some user experience virtualization in there as well. Who virtualizes their user experience on their physical desktops? The rest of you just keep it in the local profile, or do you have? Yeah, I would say it does. So if you redirect a folder. I mean, come on, what is Liquidware Labs? I don't know if there's anyone from Liquidware Labs in here. Their user experience virtualization, you redirect the folder. Park City from Microsoft, UEV, you redirect the folder. So if you're redirecting folders, I would say you were in there. But you need to be doing something along those lines. One, you're never going to be able to migrate if you don't, right? Thank you for that.
I think the challenge as well, some of the stuff that comes with Microsoft or VMware will redirect into a VMDK, so that's only usable when you mount it as part of your VDI. So it's exclusive to that platform, whereas some of them are more useful if it's a UNC path or a network.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more correct I believe you are, in which you have to be doing something with your users' data to make sure that it is persisted somewhere outside of the local profile at some point in time. So yeah, let's mentally add that to this slide. Look, I spelled virtualization correctly. All right. So, also in here, how am I doing on time? Am I doing good? No idea. We get started late. I don't know if I get to continue late. All right. don't be like some of these customers that I've seen. We walk in, they open up their book, they take a pen, and then I would tell them what to do. Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to buy view, and then you need to do this, and then write it down. Ask questions. Question everything. I know none of you would ever do that, but this halo effect has led a lot of people to just, well, I like VMware, I'm buying VMware. I like VMware too. I really like VMware. They're really great. But I would go see what Citrix has to offer, and vice versa. Here's what we found. If the desktop virtualization project was being kicked off by the server virtualization team, wow, VMware's got the in. We're probably going to get this deal. If the desktop virtualization team is kicking off this project and they're led by the guys that were doing XenApp, we got a hard sell in front of us, okay? And I could always tell in those kickoff meetings who is who, because the guy sitting over in the corner like this, he's the guy that's not running this. And I'd go find out what he did for a living. And if he said desktop virtualization, I'd go, oh, we got a chance here. VMware's in. But if he said server virtualization, I could see him right now. He's going, they're not getting my vCenter passwords. They don't even have key card access to the data center. I don't know where they think they're getting rack space from. So work those problems out. The majority of the issues that I see with trying to have a successful VDI implementation are social reasons, those types of things. If you have to go up 7 levels to get to a common boss to figure this out, you're going to continue to have problems. You're going to have to work those out amongst yourselves. This saying, buyers are liars, it actually comes from the real estate. People tell you what kind of house they want, and then they buy something completely different. But I would sit down and I'd ask about their use cases, and they would say things like, oh, we don't need user-installed apps. We'll never let our users install their own apps. And then we go into the pilot, and the one nice lady would say, hey, where's the such and such app? What app is that? Remember we had to go X budget because it was for the project that the VP was doing? Well, we didn't know anything about this. Yeah, well, it was something we had to do immediately. Well, we're not managing that. It's not part of the image. No, it's not in the pilot. Well, then I have to drop out of the pilot then, because that's what I do for a living. So you do need user-installed apps is what you're telling me, yeah? No, we don't need them. So just be honest with yourselves about what you need. Things like user-installed apps, we'll never need 3D graphics. If I hear that one more time, I don't work for VMware, I'm going to laugh at you. Yeah, you can't stop applications from revving that start using 3D. You're going to need some of these things. Be honest with yourself. Then on the other hand, you can learn from some customers that we came across that are very, very shrewd. They bought software before. They know how to buy software. They ask questions like, how do I measure IOPS? And then they don't take no, we don't know for an answer. Okay, then they put that back on the vendor. You tell us how many IOPS we need. Don't ask me to figure out how many IOPS we need. But one customer asked me if we were PCI, and that's a payment card industry, where you swipe you guys familiar with PCI? They asked us if we were PCI compliant. So are you using credit cards? No. Why do you want to know if we're PCI compliant? He goes, because if you're PCI compliant, I'd be satisfied that you did all the security that was necessary. I am, in fact, having users come in over the internet. Now, I could be subject to a man-in-the-middle attack, right? If you got PCI compliance, I doubt you'd be subject to a man-in-the-middle attack. How many people ask their questions like that? Concerned about security? Ask these questions. Who do you ask them to? The vendors, the salesman? Yeah. Don't ask the salesman. Salesmen have plausible deniability. Ask the product manager. All right? Demand to have a product manager in there on the phone. Maybe there's only so many of them. They really do need to build the products. But demand that they get in there I know in the UK, people buy from people. That's why I've made so many trips out here. That's why I know this area. That's why some of you I've met before. People buy from people. I don't know any product manager is going to look you in the eye and lie to you. But no, Vue is, the last release I saw was not PCI compliant. I'm not a product manager anymore, so don't ask me why not, because I can't tell you. Then ask your Vue product manager why not. Is it going to hurt? Do not be embarrassed. This is your money. This is your money. I don't care where you are on our journey, whoever we are. This is your money. Figure this out, and then you'll have a better chance of success on these things. Yeah, I'm going to get a drink while I let this one sink in here for a minute. How many of you have gotten a roadmap from your vendor? Yeah? Roadmap? This is what we're going to do. They sit down, they tell you, here's our grandiose plans for this version and the next version and the version after that. Don't assume that means shipping. Please, don't ever assume that means shipping, because it doesn't. And you know what? The nature of software, it changes. Things fall out. Features we told you were going to be in the next release don't end up in that release. Security server, virtual profiles, I know this for a fact. I sat in front of the customer one time in which the customer said, "That guy lied to me. He looked me right in the eye and he told me that there was going to be virtual profiles with shipping, and it didn't ship. It was supposed to be in Daytona." And I said, "Actually, no, he didn't lie to you. I did. I told him it would be shipping. It's me. I told you it was going to be shipping because I thought it was going to ship." Don't assume that roadmap equals shipping. Believe it when you see it. Get on the beta if you want to. That has a good chance. But the truth is, the virtual profiles dropped out of the beta. Vue Persona, they ended up calling it. This is another one that I see quite often. Last 2 years, everybody wanted to get into virtual desktops because they're tired of managing the images on the physical desktop. I hope that you've seen through that whole product solution and what we have to do there, virtualization does not equal image management. Unless, of course, you're doing things like kiosk mode. Then maybe you can have one gold image and you can manage it that way. But if you're doing applications and other things out there, you need some help from a whole product solution. And don't ask anyone from VMware about licensing, okay? And don't even ask Microsoft employees. I think you got to go to Microsoft corporate, because I have had Microsoft employees tell VMware customers that VMware was in violation of the licenses, and we don't believe that to be true. Nobody really, truly understands desktop virtualization licensing. There might be a session here. I think Claudio Rodriguez, if you go search his name on BriForum, you'll see he did a session on. He even had an attorney present when he did it. You could look on that if you want to, but other than that, don't assume anyone from VMware knows Microsoft licensing, that's for sure. Don't listen to their field staff. There's somebody internally at Microsoft that does. Somebody internally at Microsoft has to be the final say, but don't ask any of their field staff. None of you are guilty of this, sorry. Oh, question.
I have a random question for you based on what you just said about Microsoft licensing. Would it be easier to virtualize with a non-Microsoft product, do you feel?
I'm sorry?
Would it be easier to virtualize with a non-Microsoft OS, do you feel, based on that last slide?
Well, so again, don't listen to guys who used to work for VMware about licensing, but then you run into the VDA, where the client has to pay that VDA tax. But if you were doing, like, you were talking about perhaps Linux desktops, voila. If you're talking Linux desktops, very quickly, VMware doesn't do Linux desktops, but we had a customer tell us that they spent $80 million a year, a very large US-based customer, $80 million a year on Microsoft licensing, and they'd gladly turn half of that over to VMware if we could just get them Linux desktops. And VMware waited so long that what happened was their physical PCs got browsers on them, and they switched to SaaS apps and didn't need it anymore. So yeah, you could. I don't know, does Citrix with their Microsoft relationship probably never can do a Linux desktop. But I personally was one, if I had one vote for what View could do, it would be to broker a Linux desktop, I think would be a great idea. Do we get to go 5 minutes over because we started 5 minutes late? Okay. So some things wrapping up here. I know none of you have been guilty of doing either of these two things, but VDI seems to be social within organizations of power plays. And I don't know if VDI is going to work here, but once I get those V-letter acronyms on my name, I can get a job anywhere. Or I believe the way for me to succeed is to get the desktop group underneath me, things like that. And people work with what they're familiar with. I'm a Citrix guy. I want to stay a Citrix guy. Let me go over a few use cases that I think where you're always going to work. Cost centers, places that cost you money. Why? Because if the user experience is degraded a little bit, you don't want the data out there. Yeah, we told you it was expensive data, but let's say you have in another country, you have a remote call center or someplace like that. You don't want any data to stay there, then that's a good place for VDI. Compliance. In the healthcare in the US, I don't know about the NHS here, but we can't have any of the patient's data exposed. So we have to keep it behind a glass wall and just put out the image. That's a good use case for VDI that I've seen work. I'll tell you, unless the doctor wants to use an iPad, then that's not working for me. Using an iPad to do an app that needs to have a mouse doesn't work. And it's very hard to explain to doctors. From what I understand, some of the hospitals I've talked to, they get what they want. And what they want is to press on that pixel on their iPad. And that doesn't work in VDI yet. I guess you can expand it and expand it and expand it and try, but that doesn't really work in VDI. Here's where it works best. Universities. VMware, probably Citrix too, knocking it dead in schools in which you get a fresh, identical desktop every time you log on and log off. You know, university students tend to want to tinker and mess things up. If you have users that need the same desktop, they don't want to personalize it. Okay, you're hearing this story from the man who sold VMware their personalization software. But if you have a desktop that doesn't need personalization, VDI works fantastic for this. SLED is my acronym for State and Local Government and Education. And we see that. I call it kiosk mode almost. If you have kiosks, which the user logs in and gets the same desktop every time, no matter who the user is, this is a use case you can jump on. And remember I said if you have to do it use cases. Yes, sir?
We use persistent and non-persistent at the university. Both work well.
Yeah. Okay, so at the university here, both persistent and non-persistent. Yeah. Persistent desktops work fine for me. I'm a big fan of persistent desktops. I'm not sure if you can get the money savings that you need unless you're talking healthcare, security, compliance, where you have to do those types of things.
You have Agile, which you didn't have before. So if you need a classroom that has to have a bespoke, like if you want to do an exam environment, and you therefore have a classroom with, say, Windows 7 as the default local image, and then you've got an exam where there's an app that's running on XP only, then delivering a virtual desktop on that is one of the popular things that we seem to be doing.
Yes, so I have third-party confirmation here. This gentleman we've never met before, he agrees with me that this is an excellent use case for VDI.
I fundamentally disagree. None of the universities we have spoken to want depersonalized desktops. They want to give the students a non-persistent desktop that it remembers their customization. You tell the students they can't save their links or stuff that they've researched and found. They're not interested.
Okay, so I have a contradiction to that in which they don't follow the use case that I was speaking of where they get a fresh desktop each time.
Yeah, fresh desktop with personalization.
So they want a fresh desktop with personalization. Okay. All right. All of them know it's the expensive user experience. Nothing's quite like having that local laptop. This is stuff that if I'm getting up and I'm speaking to you and I'm trying to sell you, I don't really feel comfortable doing this in VDI today. View 5.1 just came out. You know what the big feature is? USB works. No, it really works this time. No, seriously. USB works now. It only took 5.1 releases to get USB, but it works now, okay? You can actually take your your iPhone and upgrade the OS now. It works. That's not what I mean by USB though, okay? That's not what I mean. What I mean is I got a room full of people and all of them want to download 2 gig onto their thumb drive. That's not going to work. You could, and you could, and you could, and if we did it one individually at a time, you could, but I don't know how to lock down that use case. I got a USB, I got a drive, I may want to use it. That one isn't working for me. Any peripherals at large scale use, you are not going to write DVDs. You're not burning DVDs with a VDI solution. If you have that as your use case, I don't have an answer for you, and I don't know if the other vendors out there have a use for you. You know, that's just too much data. Anything with tons of data. Large-scale printing. We know customers that are printing 300 pages each from each desktop workstation. That's just too much data to come down the line. Those types of things, stay away from those types of use cases. Leave it in the hybrid situation. Leave them on physical desktops. The 3D graphics one is the one that is the most confusing for everybody because we talk about these virtual GPUs. Remember I said roadmap is not shipping? Roadmap is not shipping. The CEO, I want to send out a live stream to everybody. Whose CEO wants to do that? Or managing director. Whose managing director wants to do that? We're trying to stuff 10 stone of data into a 5-stone stack. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry. There's probably other use cases as well, too. This is my favorite, though. This is just the nature of the beast. As our apps change and they can use touch screens, maybe this will start working. But right now, if I have to click on that pixel right there, it's not going to work in VDI. Questions? Okay. Just they're running me off the stage here, folks. I'll answer your questions afterwards. Here's some stuff that you need to do. Just all that stuff, take what you have there. And very quickly, last thing, all right? 1964 World's Fair, they had the picture phone and nylon carpeting were the 2 big space-age technologies. 1965 World's Fair, they had the picture phone, but no nylon carpeting. Anybody know why not? Because it became so popular, it wasn't anything to see at a World's Fair. People had bought it. It was good. All right? Macworld 2010, we're still selling the picture phone. Some technologies, folks, just some technologies, okay, just keep that in mind, are always going to be better next year. The year of VDI is not 2012. Maybe it'll be 2013. I'm hoping so. Thanks, everyone.